and I'm so happy to have all of you today in the panel. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all the people present here today. We have people from different, I guess almost all the time zones here today. And I'm Kanupriya Jaju, founder chairperson of Binding Bharat. And it is with great pleasure and deep sense of honor that I address you all today. At a time when individual existence is hardly appreciated and the states are getting unendingly greedy for power, we talk about winning hearts. We talk about reaching out to each other. We talk about hearing each other out. We talk of binding hearts, binding Bharat. I would now request a small clip of Binding Bharat to be played. This video contains the very essence of who we are and what we believe in. Further, it will also highlight some of the work done by us in 2020. So, Mr. Sandesh, can you please switch on the video for us?
Binding Bharat is a collective youth network founded in order to identify and meet the challenges that nation-states are facing all over the world today. Binding Bharat is based on a single premise that young people have the potential and willingness to bring about the momentous change. Therefore, they must be provided with opportunities to play a significant role for creating better lives for themselves, their communities, and society as a whole. We strongly believe that as we continue to work in our own ways, in our respective communities, there is a great value to be gained through the exchange of experiences, information, and ideas, and by supporting one another at a global level. This network is therefore our own tool through which we can become more familiar with the realities of the people in our own regions and elsewhere, and can express freely our expectations, hopes, and concerns.
Ranil Vikram Singh, Prasanjit, Kanupriya, and all my distinguished friends. Let me first of all thank these two young friends of mine for thinking of working on this very important theme.
I must thank Binding Bharat. You are looking at the future. We are looking at the future in which you will have a globalized system without a globalized leadership, where regions are going to be much more important.
I must say that the relationship between our two countries have always been very strong, very friendly, and very good.
बाइंडिंग भारत की फाउंडर कनुप्रिया जाजू जी को मैं धन्यवाद देता हूं कि आपने मुझे आमंत्रित किया।
Our mission is to address the social, economic, and security challenges that the world today faces. We want to cultivate a collective sense of belonging and acceptance that coexistence based on stakeholder mentality is the way forward. We want to establish erudite and intellectual narratives based on discussions, debates, rationality, and modernism. As they say, that it's an idea which can change the world. Binding Bharat aspires to be a platform that enables people to connect in spite of ideological differences and act as a bridge. We will work for the growth and development. We will work for the dignity of an individual. We want to be the voice for change, for hope, for a better tomorrow.
हाँ मतलब वो काम की चीज है लेकिन एक्चुअली दूसरे सही है और वो भी अगर तेरे को ऐड करना है मतलब टाइट में अश्वगंधा भी कर सकता है अश्वगंधा
So that was the video about Binding Bharat. And can we just mute everybody?
गोली
Can we mute everybody?
इम्यूनिटी बूस्टर है
Yes. Okay. So let me jump to what brings all of us here today. As a part of our international initiatives, Team Binding Bharat has come up with concept of connecting leaders, professors, diplomats, youth, and now for this very conference, we have mental health experts, counselors, pediatricians, psychiatrists, psychologists, and child experts of nation states all across the world. Speaking in front of this August gathering, which comprises of impressive panel of experts, I would say that 2020 has been a rough year for everybody. But teens and young adults are among those hit hardest by mental health concerns. The uncertainty of when is school going to open or when can we see our friends and hug them have definitely created a psychological barrier. The structure of life, at least how life used to look, vanished completely overnight. The phrase social distancing is now part of our everyday vocabulary, and masks are now an essential part of our wardrobe. When it comes to schools, colleges, universities, and various exams that follow them, there will be a tough readjustment period for students, whether they are meeting virtually, in person, or using a hybrid model. Students have to let go of their expectations for what a typical academic year or semester looks like and adjust to a new way of doing things. You may have already noticed that this adjustment process can come with its own set of difficulties, behavioral challenges, and mental health challenges in children. Being aware of some of the changes you are likely to see in the kids is an important step in helping them adjust comfortably to this new normal. Well, today's topic for discussion is impact of pandemic on children. Let's hope for a fruitful discussion ahead and open the floor to everyone. Up first, I would like to invite our guest speaker and a dear friend of mine, Ms. Shivani Agarwal from Vancouver, Canada. She's a clinical counselor, also an art therapist, and vice president of British Columbia Art Therapy Association. She's also the director of Chivannis Wellness, which is culturally blended wellness center. We welcome you, Shivani.
Hi, hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone, wherever you are. It is so lovely to connect with such amazing and brilliant minds all over the world and, with a common goal. Thank you for inviting me to this. And I would love to share a little bit about the recent trends that I've been noticing and the work that I've been doing with regards to the impact that this pandemic has had on children. Children, teenagers, young adults, anybody who kind of fits that age group and is, going through the pandemic just like you and I. I can start by just talking about how very important childhood is in just our lives. So it is the most fundamental developmental part of a developmental stage of our life that actually goes into defining who we are going to be as people and how we are going to form attachments with the rest of the world around us. So all of the people who are going through this stage, along with going through a pandemic, their time right now is to learn, to explore, to interact with the world. But instead, they're just reacting to the world because safety, which is a very, very important part of this stage, that has been challenged. They're going through their everyday life, experiencing a threat, not just to themselves, to their families, to their career, to their school life, to their friends. This is a time when, we explore the world in the safety of our home. We're given a choice, not because we have to. So a lot of the things are going sideways for a lot of students growing up right now, as you must have noticed in your own areas. So the pandemic, which is a threat that has not only been introduced to our environment, but also inside our home. Now, instead of growing and development, everybody's main motive is just to survive. We are constantly functioning in fight, flight, or freeze mode. So all of the children growing up, when we have our normal physical milestones, like a child learns to walk, a child learns to play, a child learns to grab things, stand, all of those things. Just like that, we have a certain amount of emotional milestones, like, developing trust with our environment, developing our identity, developing interaction with our peers, developing interaction with others. So all of these things, getting love and acceptance within society, within our world, all of these emotional milestones that are also very important parts of who we are, they are somewhere not being achieved for kids, or they're getting hindered, or they're being interrupted. Kids are, although they're spending more time at home, they are spending time in fear of either losing a parent. They are spending time being helpless, feeling very uncertain about what's going to happen. And that is giving rise to a lot of anxiety at a very early age. A lot of children coming in with lack of motivation, lack of direction in their life, a lot of depressive symptoms. It's also the first time parents are spending so much time with children that they're not usually used to. So they're getting to see them morning to night. They're getting to see who they're going to be at school, at home, without that sort of boundary, without that freedom, without a privacy that the child gets to express themselves outside. So there's pushback on both sides. And usually in certain households where it's one or the other, it's either authoritarian household where the parent says, it's going to be my way, and the child says, no, it's going to be my way, because they're learning to develop their identity. There's a clash. And then again, it's the survival of the fittest, because both at this time don't really know what to do. Our nervous system is experiencing something like this for the first time. So it's very interesting, especially sitting in family counseling sessions, even just educating the family about mental health is important, not just for the parent, but also for the child. Another area that I'm noticing a few different trends coming through are children who are obviously taking classes online, but they might have special needs. They might already have diagnoses of ADHD, autism, or social anxiety, things like that. And working with those kids specifically has been a big challenge, because they don't usually have the resources they would find in school. They don't even have the opportunities right now to interact with their classmates the same way, to learn, to figure out a kid already with a diagnosis. How does that person go to school? They can't get up and go on Zoom, sit in the same place the whole day. If somebody has a diagnosis like attention deficit disorder or anything like that. So kids going to classrooms, sitting there, doing all of that is one thing, but the kids with special needs, their parents are having to then set apart time, create another boundary from work from home to dedicate time just for that. So that's definitely a challenge that I've seen so many parents brave at this time. But there's definitely so much that can be done in areas where kids need special attention. Another thing that is a really big part of us growing up is rites of passage in the form that as adults we get married, or we have a job, or we celebrate birthdays, we celebrate these moments in our life that actually introduce us into society, or they even tell us, okay, now you've grown up, or now this is my role in the world. So when kids' graduations get canceled, when they don't get to celebrate like their first day at school, or they don't get to meet newer friends, they don't get to do birthdays anymore, that itself takes away that achievement, that reward that they get for working so hard consistently. And then that again impacts the way that they grow, because they're like, well, what are we looking forward to? So it's almost like all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy, but except the play is the reward, which even as adults we can't really get. So it's really impacting children a lot, because as adults we've kind of gone through that. We're still able to rationally make sense of what's going on. But if you tell a kid, nope, you can't go to play because you just can't go to play, they get frustrated, as you may have noticed, whoever has kids at home. So that's a huge part that's coming through too. Another thing is loss. We as adults experience loss in so many different ways, but especially for children. They're expressing grief because either they've lost a loved one due to COVID, or they've lost certainty, they've lost childhood, they've lost freedom. All of these are very big losses that they're then going to grieve, and grief looks like sadness, but sadness isn't always the easiest way people express themselves. So it's often shown as anger or frustration. So then we have 5-6 people in the family frustrated and angry at the same time, not really realizing that it's actually sadness, and there's so much underneath it that they can explore together. They can just be kind to one another instead of suppressing one another, and then that continues to build, and that plus hormonal changes growing up. So imagine a teenager, also give them the grief of a pandemic, and then we have Mahabharat at home every day. But yeah, that along with one of the saddest aspects that I've noticed is kids experiencing domestic abuse and domestic violence, the rates that have gone up significantly. Because earlier when kids were at school, even if parents had disputes and there was already domestic violence at home, it was going unnoticed. But now kids are in the situation, already helpless, feeling lack of control. So I know I'm putting a lot of heavy kind of trends right away in the beginning, but it is just to give a quick snapshot of, what we're dealing with isn't an everyday, isn't a piece of cake. But kudos to the parents, to the teachers, to the healthcare workers that are still managing at such a time. A few things, to kind of uplift us too, or to just kind of keep us focused on the goal, which may not be super far away to make it through the pandemic, is really encouraging everybody to set very good boundaries, whether it's between work and home, even though all of it is in the same environment. So if someone's doing a 9 to 5, making sure that it is just a 9 to 5, and after 5 you're focusing on the family, or you're spending time with your children, or kids aren't just in front of their laptop doing school the whole day. They do have their breaks, they do have their, this is school, this is home, because that is really going to help create some structure. Also bringing creativity into everyday life, motivating one another, being kind to one another, and most importantly, checking in on each other to help each other, not checking in, hey, did you do your homework? Hey, did you do this? Hey, how much money did you make? What did you do? Instead of blaming, just kind of being kind to one another, motivating one another, educating your own self on mental health and your kids on mental health, opening up those conversations. And if parents are struggling emotionally because this is new for you, this is not something you're also supposed to know, to notice that, to recognize that, and get help. Because if you get help, your kids will too. And if you get help, you're going to create a safer environment for your kids to grow up in. So yeah, that's just a few of my cents. And I'm so excited to hear what everybody has to say, and would so open to any kind of discussion. And I'll pass it back over to Kanupriya. Thank you so much for having me as a part of this discussion. And my hope is that you stay safe.
Thank you, Shivani. That was a wonderful speech that you gave. And I'm also very happy that you are here today. It's pretty odd an hour in Canada, but thanks for making it. And up next, we have Dr. Bichu Raksha. She's a healthcare practitioner and currently practices as a registrar in Ireland. She holds MD from the University of Oradea. I'm sure she will have a lot to share with us today. Dr. Bichu.
Hi, thank you for giving me this opportunity to be among you guys today. So I'm just going to start by sharing my screen. Okay, I think I cannot share my screen. So the talk of today was the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on children, and I believe it is a very important talk on today's what is happening. So the COVID-19 pandemic has hit us all by surprise in December 2019 with in Wuhan. Today we are recording 140 million cases internationally and a sad loss of 3 million people globally. So when we talk about COVID-19, the least impacted age group of people have been the children, luckily so far, but they do remain one of the most vulnerable age group. They are vulnerable because they are being affected directly by the consequences of the disease itself, and they are facing interruption in essential services, namely they are facing interruption in education, healthcare, nutrition, protection interventions, and this is also adding to a severe global economic recession that is already impoverishing children and compounding deep pre-existing inequalities and exclusion in the society. Now, when we do talk about COVID-19, we cannot not speak about quarantine and isolation, which has happened in nearly all countries of the world. It has had a lot of negative impact on children, on their mental health, on the physical health. They have experienced an increase in domestic violence and an increase in abuse, child abuse. When we talk about child abuse, we talk about neglect, physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, and they have also experienced negative impacts on schooling. When we talk about mental health, we do speak about a wide array of feelings that are arising in these children that are supposed to be there experiencing special moments of their life. They are experiencing depression, anxiety, frustration, irritability from being at home, segregated from their peer groups, from social networks. And in this isolation, they are also not being able to develop their social skills fully. And their physical health are also being affected. We talk about growth disturbance, especially in developing countries. We talk about malnutrition. Everybody knows about famine, but what is COVID-19 doing to this? It is only adding up to the existing problem. UNICEF has quoted that there has been possibly a 14% rise in acute malnutrition that might have translated in an addition of 10,000 deaths of children per month in sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia. We are also talking about disruptions in vaccination, disruption in facilities, in health facilities. Either what we're talking about poor resources, we're talking about a lack of access to vaccines, or we're talking about inadequate staffing. We are also talking about abuse, child abuse. And I believe when we talk about child abuse, we have to talk about neglect. Neglect is one of the most common type of child abuse in Ireland and also internationally. And it happens when the child is not being given adequate care or supervision to the extent that the child might be physically or developmentally harmed. And when we talk about child abuse, we do talk about emotional abuse. And when we talk about emotional abuse, we do talk about emotional needs. Now, who are the people that needs to cater for the emotional needs of these children? They are every stakeholder. Everybody has a role in it, whether it is the immediate environment or it is the extended environment. And when we're talking about the immediate environment, who are we speaking of? We're speaking of the mom, the father, the brother, the sister, the siblings, the grandparents, everybody living under the same roof. They have a very important and essential role in catering to the emotional need of these children. they have to make sure, first of all, to be able to provide for a safe environment. They also have to be able to provide for time for these children. As the previous presenter said, parents have never spent so much time with children. They are doing homeschooling. So these time needs to be allocated to these children. Children have to be emotionally stimulated. They are experienced, there are toddlers, there are 1-year-olds who are experiencing emotions for the first time. So they need to be stimulated, because they are not getting to spend these time with other kids at school, for example. And we also have to talk about the extended environment. Who are the people? Who are the people in the extended environment? Who are these stakeholders who are there to cater for the emotional need? I believe, very importantly, we have to talk about the teacher. We have to talk about the GP. We have to mention the guardian. We have to mention the social care worker. These people are the extended environment, and they have a crucial role to play, which means that they have to be the mandators to recognize that these people, these children, are not meeting the emotional needs, and child abuse is happening. And when we talk about these people, we talk about an institution. We talk about an institution like in Ireland, we have TUSLA. TUSLA is one of the is the first national body that was created in 2014, there for child welfare, for child protection. And why am I talking about TUSLA today is, when we're talking about child's emotional need, we're talking about child emotional abuse, we're talking about these mandators, these stakeholders like GPs, like GARDA, like doctors, like healthcare, mental health care practitioners, psychologists, psychiatrists. They need to be able to identify that a parent is saying her child is experiencing stress, isolation, anxiety, depression. They take them to a psychiatrist or to a psychologist. These mandators need to be able to say that this child is not, emotional need is not being catered for, and there has to be a proper channeling of these concerns. And that's where in Ireland Children First Act comes into play. It is a well-defined policy that sets out how to recognize these concerns, how each mandator needs to be trained to identify, to recognize the issues, the concerns regarding these children, and how to channel these concerns through set pathways, and how to achieve remedial action. So I believe in every country, people in the extended environment, psychologists, psychiatrists, GPs, teachers, they need to be able to identify where emotional needs are not being met. They need to be able to channel these concerns and to achieve a remedial action. I believe it is very, very, very important. And we talk also about technology. Who hasn't been in touch with technology recently to mitigate the risk of lockdown? Everybody has. It does give us an apparent source of social inclusion. There hasn't been a lot of studies done so far that has concluded whether it does mitigate or does not mitigate the risk of lockdown. But yes, in Italy, in last year, there was a study done, an interesting study of 990 participants that did conclude that yes, indeed, technology does mitigate the side effects, the psychological side effects of a lockdown. It did it in Italy. So when we talk about use of technology to give a sense of social inclusion, we talk about voice calls, video calls, online board gamings, multiple video gamings, watching movies in party mode. It is important. It is important to keep socially connected. And also we do talk about e-health. E-health has recently expanded in developing in well-developed countries. There are people that are experiencing major depression episodes during lockdown, and they feel the need to address this to a healthcare practitioner, and they have limited resources of to get out. It's a period of lockdown, so there comes into play facilities provided by technology, like virtual medical consultation, if needs to healthcare practitioners are being able to directly relate to a pharmacy to order medications for these people. So there is 100% the use of technology there to mitigate these kind of health concerns. And also we talk about education. Yes, technology has greatly helped here, where we do see children going on online classes, webinars. They are actually having virtual or outdoor classes, you know, where teachers are getting out and showing the area to children. There are recreational time being done on Zoom, for example, homeschooling with the use of technology. So yes, of course, technology has helped to mitigate the risk associated to lockdown and coronavirus. There comes the question, can the world be prepared for future epidemics and pandemics? Is health and fitness a way forward? I would have to strongly agree with that, because it has been documented more than clearly that comorbidities, medical comorbidities, unhealthy lifestyle has predisposed these people to being more vulnerable to the COVID-19 pandemic. So yes, maintaining a healthy lifestyle, decreasing any chance of any medical comorbidities like obesity, cardiovascular diseases, hypertension, yes, it can only make you better prepared for any kind of disease, and eventually also for any kind of epidemic or pandemic. I would like to thank you all for your attention.
Dr. Raksha, that was a very informative session. We are very happy to have you today. It was amazing, and definitely parents have never spent so much time with kids. So it is a new situation for all of us, mothers as well as the kids. So yes, thank you for coming today. Up next, we have Miss Teresa Su from Hong Kong. She's an international wellness speaker, TV host, and mental health educator who is inspired to inspire her audience to be well, happy, and successful. An experienced educator of journalism, communication, media, health, and wellness, Teresa is a qualified yoga teacher, integrative nutrition, and health coach and Reiki practitioner. Her mission on health and wellness takes her around the world. We are very happy to have you on our board of panelists today. Teresa. Yeah.
Yes, there you go. Always live, right? Thank you. And it's been very interesting listening to all of you and having you share your experiences in your country. So now that you've seen me live and Zoom there, can I just go ahead and do my share screen?
Yeah. Yes.
Just have I do need you to give me a share screen, please.
Yes, what?
Yeah. I got it. Oh, still not on yet. Not able to share.
Is that happening?
Nope. But you know what? It's okay. I think why don't we just keep going?
Yeah.
Is it? Hang on. Let's try one more time. You know, I don't ever give up. Don't ever give up. No, it's not happening. So are you giving multiple? Okay. You know what? I could just talk, although I did spend some time on a PowerPoint. Never mind. So the case in Hong Kong here, I think the message is pretty much universal with what you have shared and around the world. Children here in Hong Kong, and I think Hong Kong overall, we've had a very unique and exceptional, honestly blessed situation. So overall, the cases of the pandemic, I mean, we barely had any compared to the rest of the world. And, children here have been able to go to school, although there were a lot of closures. But I think one thing that we don't share with the rest of the world is inconsistency with schools. And also at the same time am I seeing a message here? Okay, I could try the option. Okay, sure. Okay, there you go. All right, here we go again. And I don't have sound, so it should be okay. So can you guys share all right? Should I do a full screen?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Love these health shows. So I think I like to say, let me speak about the reality for the kids here under the mask, the reality that they deal with. So, because I was saying earlier, we have a unique case where we had all the freedom we needed, and we are able to move around. Everything is working. So we are different in the sense that we haven't really had a lockdown, although the inconsistency comes from having to be very extra precautious. We wear our masks, we do our alcohol wipes, we do everything, you know, on public transportation is being clean 24/7. Now, the thing with the kids that have to deal with is the inconsistency with the school closures. Now, Hong Kong is also unique in the sense, I don't know how many of you have been to Hong Kong or familiar with the Hong Kong situations here. In the initial months, we've had, you know, work from home because we didn't know what was going to happen. And then the schools weren't sure that they were going to close, and then we did close. So we had the same situation like the rest of the world was. Moms, dads, all of a sudden working from home, and all the kids are having to do online schooling. But everything was happening at a very small space for most families. So as you know, some Hong Kong families share a space of 200 some square foot, 300 square foot, and if you're lucky, you have 700 square foot. But if you're from more middle class or affluent families, you may have bigger homes. But yet still, the messages that I was, you know, consistently getting either from my clients or you know, schools or the kids were giving me a bit of feedback was that they were starting to feel really cramped over time. And that didn't take a long time because the space here is just so limited. Now, I was saying earlier, we are blessed in the sense that we have our freedom. We never really had a lockdown. We were able to go out in public. We were able to go buy food with all the extra precautions in place. Now, what our children had to face, as I said, was the school closures. Okay, you know, let's close for a bit and then let's see how the cases go. And then when the cases drop, we're like, okay, well, you know, let's go back to school again. Now, 4 waves later of COVID, our schools are now in 3/4, that makes sense, so 3/4 of operation, so not full operation. And then slowly, hopefully, we'll edge into full opening, right? Everybody goes back to school. Now, the universities are hybrid situations. So teachers like me are having to be in the class, you know, inside the classroom, and the students have that option. But still yet is that inconsistency and the uncertainty, like what is going to happen next? And what is the government going to say? And what is the next measure that the government is going to take? And the overall situation here is that people feel that the government is actually being extra precautious, but that those extra precautions are keeping us healthy. Yet at the same time, children are having to wonder, and the parents are also having to wonder, you know, the ups and downs. How do we deal with this? And in terms of the mental health, I've personally had students tell me that they have no idea what's going on. They don't know what the virus means. And within the, you know, the space constraints of their homes, they're not sure what's happening. And one of my students told me, teenage clients actually said she felt, quote unquote, that the world was falling apart. And stress and anxiety, you know, I don't know, we actually had suicide cases directly linked to COVID, but that was already happening before COVID. Stress levels, you know, really escalating. We do have cases of, you know, increasing with mental health reports, concerns in both parents and teachers and school children. Now, with studying itself, the kids have really lost out a lot in the past year because of, again, the inconsistency. So are we going in person? Are we doing face-to-face? And are we back online again? And the teachers are having to constantly adjust that. And the curriculum obviously has really not been inconsistent. And the kids are not sure what they're learning. So they have, quote unquote, really lost out academic, you know, in the academic wise. So in some ways they are behind. So, you know, they're having to be worried about what to do and how to catch up. Now, at the same time, you know, Hong Kong is very heavy in terms of exams. And we are very heavy in terms of kids, you know, learning and earning academically. So parents get concerned and kids are concerned. You know, we do multi-language schooling here in many schools, and the kids again are losing out in the language capability and having a hard time having to catch up with the mathematics and all the every assignments or every subject that they have. They're really not sure what's going to be happening, on the next level. Now at home, then what? The parents get the same questions as all of you, I'm sure you've been speaking of, is how to keep the kids sane at the same time happy and yet learning and growing. And that's been a question that's been asked for me to answer a lot of the times. And I've said to parents, you know, the thing that you could do is really, here it is, the next slide is, I'm always almost forgetting that because I'm so in tune with the situation here. Every home needs to really assert and insert more love or inject more love and not so much fear. And I spoke a lot about that with a lot of clients here, with a lot of schools and teachers and the principals here, because I think the common understanding is that there isn't really anything that we could do about the situation except go with the flow. And that's so easier said than done to most people. But I think we could do as individuals and teachers, educators, and parents is that we could actually start out with ourselves, and the energy that we put, in every situation, that we bring into every situation and every circumstance, is how we will affect the rest of the people. And it became especially important when I was dealing with my teenage clients and tweens and even children, was having that element of having them be aware of their own mental health without telling them that, look, it's not okay, that you're stressed. It's not okay that you're having emotions, but except actually we need to do the opposite, is to encourage that, is by bonding with them, by spending a lot of time with them. And as some of you mentioned, parents in Hong Kong, the same thing. They've never had to spend so much time with their kids, because here in Hong Kong, we have a helper system, right? Most parents are working parents, and, their helpers spend all their time with the kids while they're at work. And all of a sudden COVID happened, and everyone, like I said, is in close quarters. And oh my goodness, moms and dads are having to be the helpers and everything all at the same time. And this was a case that I heard in India and Bangladesh as well when I spoke to clients, all around this COVID situation. So what can we do? Mind our own energy, right? But yet at the same time, we could teach our kids the same things, which is I've been saying for all clients of all ages. What can you do? So one of the things that I actually advocate a lot, and I teach kids and all the parents different things, is, look, firstly, let's have a wellness element and an individual well-being awareness within our family and within our schools or what organizations or whatever. And that's so important. Now the key with everything, all the uncertainty and inconsistency and who knows what's going to happen tomorrow, many of us could be easily seated in that fear, in that space of fear. But we don't need to. As I said in the previous slide, is that we could actually ground ourselves in the truth. The truth is that this is what's happening. It's a shared experience globally, and it is an experience that we all don't know what's going to happen next, and yet we could deal with it better. Okay, now that we've, in Hong Kong it's been over a year, in many places it's close to a year. We know we have the tools, and it is so important that we inject and we use those tools within ourselves and within everybody else. So the key is to get our kids, firstly, we hope we could remove our mask, but we know it's not going to be soon. But behind the mask or underneath the mask, we want to make sure that they are truly well and that they're truly happy, like the kids in the corner there, and that we want to make sure that, that they're doing well, even the circumstances are not as well and normal as they'd like to be. And, in Hong Kong, kids have been very blessed. We're okay as long as we wear a mask. We get to go out in the public. We get to eat at restaurants. We get to go play at parks. And at one point, it was, again, not consistent either because those places were closed. So ups and downs, and the kids are having to adjust that. But then the bigger question is, how can we help them do that? So one is a positive mindset. Two is love, spend a lot of time with them. And really treasure that time. It may never ever come again. And I think when we spend the time with them together is to get creative. And also I made a whole list here, you know, give them responsibility. And I think a lot of parents and teachers tend to take over that whole obligation thing, like, oh my God, I need to make the entire family happy and I need to do everything. And you know, I've said this many times to many clients around the world, it is never possible. And I've done this myself. No good. And the most effective way to keep everybody well and mentally sane and the family to be as functional as possible in good times and bad times, it's always to think that everyone has the right tools. So one of the things I would encourage most of you, if you could share, and I'm sure you know that as well, is what if you sit down with your kid as a family, or if you were a teacher, now going back to the class or doing Zoom classes, which I do, both. You know, what I do is, you know, sit my students down. Hey guys, girls, let's close your eyes, plant your feet on the ground. And, you know, if you want, place your hands over your heart. And all I want you to do is just sit there, ground, be quiet, and just listen to your breath. And all I need you to do is just to listen to your breath. And you guys could do this as I speak as well. And, you know, and just take a moment there and to feel, count your blessings. Everything that you have right now, you can be grateful for. And just imagine how long that list could be. You know, 1 minute, magic. Everybody's face completely changes. It doesn't matter what age you are, what situation you're in, you immediately feel so much better. I mean, how often do we do this? Is to take time to tune in and to just listen to your breath. Most of us don't even notice that we actually need to breathe. Isn't that amazing? Now, another tool that I always tell people to do, food is so important. And I mentioned energy, right? Our individual energy. So imagine every one of us take time to have some quiet time to ground, and that energy would amplify with our families and with our kids and with, you know, with our students and with our, you know, with our colleagues. And those are so important. And same thing, if we did this at every, you know, at every school, at every corporation, we bring all that back home to our family. Same thing would happen, right? Positive mindset, positive energy, breathing, meditation, good sleep, all those are important, but have that wellness element in place and know that when everybody could take that responsibility and share that responsibility, the goodness is good. One of my niche things is about eating right. Good food, you know, not junk food. This is, you know, COVID has been such a great time for all of us to look into our nutrition. Some of you mentioned that earlier, but what is really good nutrition? And I'm an advocate of whole plant-based rainbow foods. You know, if you see my photos there, I always choose very colorful, you know, colorful photos. And imagine if everybody's mind was this beautiful and full of positive thoughts. What is that? What is all that doing to ourselves and to our kids? And what, you know, we tell them that, and if they have all of that, and imagine if we feed them whole plant-based foods, less junk food, less refined carbohydrates, less refined sugar, good fats, good oil, right? You know, good vitamins like B complex, which is good for neural function and de-stressing, you know, and fresh pumpkin soups and carrot soups. And you know what? I talk about giving them responsibility earlier. What if you had them cook for you? And kids love to cook. You know, last year I had a 3-year-old. I went to their homes. I had a 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old. You know, they made Chinese dumplings. They made yogurt bowls. So I do integrative nutrition. So they all loved it. And you know what? I did meditation with them. I said, go choose a plant in your garden, because the family had a very nice patio garden, which is a luxury in Hong Kong. And they all did it, you know, they picked out a plant and they just stood there, and I said, close your eyes and smell the plant, smell the flower, and feel why you chose this plant. And they meditated. And then, you know what, they cook all their food and they ate it and they really loved it. And then they did yoga and then they did art. So the idea here is, guys, get creative. I mean, COVID has provided all this opportunity for us to get creative, get everybody to be responsible, and really look into everybody's well-being. And you know, someone mentioned earlier is, I mean, did you even ask them how they're doing? Kids need to be heard. Our families need to be heard, which I've seen in Hong Kong sometimes culturally for some families it's been actually challenging, because coming out to say, look, I actually feel frustrated, you know, and I was brought up that way. I mean, I grew up in America, but I was brought up that way in a very traditional Chinese family where, you know, it's an embarrassment to say something's not right with us. But there's nothing wrong with that. And that's what I teach people around the world now. Look, if you're overwhelmed, say you're overwhelmed. And please teach your kids that. Whether you're a teacher or a parent, you know what? It is okay. And I am constantly encouraging my students to do the same. I don't care what age they are. I don't care how old they are, really. Look, if something is not right, come forth and let's have a chat. And you know, here in Hong Kong, we have a campaign called Shall We Talk, and it's led by one of the ambassadors, actually one of our celebrity singers, Eason Chan, and he's very phenomenal. He's you know, he's a very spiritual person, and he's done a lot of talks with communities all over, and that's so important. This is why the government came out with this campaign, is because we do see this need even within the schools. You know, school children are fearful and apprehensive and hesitant about coming forth about their own emotions. And I think going forward, the world around, that's what we need, is really a lot of listening skills, being there, a lot of love, injecting a lot of great energy, positive thinking, and have that well-being and wellness system in place so that everyone could take responsibility and we could all ride the wave together. And hopefully this is going to be over with like tomorrow. Yeah? Thank you so much for having me, and I hope I brought some insights to this conference.
Thank you, Teresa. It was great to have you here. Definitely, we got a lot of insights, and thank you. And you know, sharing responsibility with the kids and yoga, nutrition, good food, positivity. This is what is going to keep us going. So
definitely, yeah, we all need to do it.
Yes. So we'll just go to our next panelist now, Mr. Rajiv Mehta, Dr. Mehta. He's working as consultant psychiatrist at Sir Gangaram Hospital, New Delhi. And he's an advisor for Indian Council for Journalism, also special advisor and author for a monthly child magazine, Geo Child. He is quoted multiple times by leading English and Hindi newspapers, and has appeared on various English and Hindi news channels. He has also published a book in 2018 named Speak to Anyone Easily, a copy of which I proudly own, and it's a good read. And I welcome you, Dr. Mehta, today on this platform. Let's get some insights from you.
Thank you, Kanupriya, and thank you for inviting me to such an important topic. The children are the future, and children are like God. And what we say, what I have listened to all the three panelists before, it seems a universal phenomena that everywhere the children are being hampered. So I would like to speak about my own experience here. What has happened, what is happening to the children nowadays and the current COVID pandemic, especially when the current phase is so much harmful and so much overwhelming than the previous phase. So the children are the most vulnerable of the groups. The early experiences of the childhood have a long-lasting impact on their health, development, and the quality of life, because this is the period where they grow exactly. If we can divide the children into groups, I divide them in three groups, like 6 years, where the brain is developing very fast, 6 to 12 years, when they're still dependent on their parents, and because they're much more dependent on the parents, but they have those hormonal surge, teenage rebellion, etc. So all these groups are impacted. The fact is that during the first 5 years of life, the brain is undergoing the brain development. There is so much of brain development going on, and the brain is considerably more sensitive to the environment factors, stress, parental love, etc. So the preschool children appear to be the more impacted. Not right now, that is a lifelong phenomenon. There is a dependency on parents and other elders of the family for their nutritional needs, for their education needs, for their emotional needs, for the financial needs, and as well as understanding the internal and the external happenings of the world. They look for guidance and support from them. So the quality of guidance and support which they get determine what they will do in the future, how they will build up their future. So many new things are being introduced in these phases, like new ways of education, new friends, new way of communication with others. And the teenagers have just achieved the new independence and they wish to break free, but there is a lot of compulsion to remain in the house. They are unable to break free and there is a lot of frustration building up inside. So all of these make them more vulnerable as compared to the other adults who have achieved a little bit of maturity. And moreover, the children and the teenagers, especially in the Asian countries, they have to seek permission, or if they have achieved a little bit of hormonal surge in teenager, they are mostly at the loggerheads with the family seniors. So it's a very grim situation nowadays when they have to see each other 24/7. So this is regarding the healthy children. Even healthy children are at risk for psychosocial problems with decreased emotional and social support and lower physical activity. But the more vulnerable groups are the children with the learning difficulties, as Dr. Agarwal told, Dr. Shivani Agarwal told, that there are children with ADHD, autism, special needs, neurodevelopmental disorders, mental health needs are especially more vulnerable. And also those who are living in overcrowded homes and having unemployed parents. So the impact of quarantine and isolation on children depends on many factors. It is not like A to B. Everywhere many factors are compiling with each other, they are interacting with each other and interacting with the many life aspects and determining the impact and intensity of the quarantine. So the factors which determine this is the age and the sex of the children at home. Females are more vulnerable because they are thought to be more responsible, more active for the household responsibilities. How many children are there at home? Single children without interaction with others will have more vulnerability. Nuclear family or joint family, how many people are there in the family who can take care of the child and who can take care of the household responsibilities? Being raised by a single parent or both parents, suppose nowadays the doctors are going through the COVID duties and they don't come back home, they remain in a quarantine center. So the children are being raised by a single mother who has more responsibilities, or if the parent is a divorcee. So the impact also depends whether the person is being raised by a single or both the parents. Whether single person is working or whether both the parents are working, how much time they are able to devote to the children. The responsibilities on the mother, that is the most important, because she is thought to be fulfilling all kind of needs for the children, especially the younger children. The presence of domestic help is there or not, or all the activities are being done by the mother. Parent-child interaction, the book which you showed, someone commented that's a I don't know, someone commented that's for a promotion. No, that's not for a promotion, but that's exactly stated. It is a scientific fact that the parent-child interaction depends on long-term impact. There is a scientific term called expressed emotions. The families where there are a lot of expressed emotions, that is hostility, over concern, lot of criticism. So these children tend to develop more mental health problems in the long term. So relationship equations in the family, previous and the current, domestic violence, urban background or rural background, that is again important. The socio-economic condition of the family, the availability of the resources in the family, and most importantly, the difference between the taught idealistic and realistic behavior. That is very important because the children are very sharp-minded, very observant. When they observe the difference between what is being taught and what is being practiced, they get confused. And this also determines the impact. So presence of mental illness and their intensity in the family, especially among parents and also among the children, the presence of physical illness in the family, which are limiting in the children, maybe acute, maybe chronic, or in the parents. Whether anyone has impacted by the corona in the family, that is again important. Online classes or offline classes or a hybrid model, how long the schools have been or will be shut, that is another area of concern which is not known to anybody. And the most important, how long the pandemic will continue and when will the normalcy return. So all these sectors determine what will be the impact, what will be their intensity, and certain children will be more vulnerable, few will be less vulnerable. But what will be the impacts as such? The impacts are mainly in the lower socioeconomic group, where there's a lot of poor nutrition. The domestic helps coming to my home or the other, my friend's home, they are worried about the nutrition. The lack of nutrition, the lack of nutrition is impacting their mental health also, apart from the physical health. That is a cyclical. Lack of nutrition, lack of physical health, mental health problems. So anger, depression, stress, anxiety, they all increase. So there is a decline in education. The domestic helps and the other children are unable to go to the school because of the lockdown. So there is a decline, especially in the poor people, of education. And most probably the girls are not going to return to the work. Now they have to earn more money because they are under debt. So they will go to other houses for work. So there is violence and abuse, as has been talked about, because of the restricted movement and the socio-economic decline and the parental frustration. There is increase in stress, depression, anxiety, conduct problems are there in the children. There is a burnout among the children. We talk about burnout among the professionals. There is a burnout among the children who are confined in the four walls of the home. What will they do? Can they play the same game again and again? Can they interact the same way again and again? Can they watch the same TV serial again and again? The TV doesn't provide them again a new material. So there is a burnout among the children. They are frustrated, basically. There is a oppositional defiant behavior. There is a rebellion. And then there is a digital dependence. And because of the digital dependence, there is more chances of cyberbullying, and the sexual predators are also on the prey for them. And there is a lack of data privacy, which can hamper in the long run. So here, when the children are basically 24/7 with the parents have more responsibility to handle them, to bring them well, to nourish them, and to make a better citizen of the country. See, the children are going to grow anyway, but what grows in the children, that is the most important ultimately. So what the parents need to do, I will just enumerate firstly. So first of all, they have to prioritize. Rather than taking the kids for granted, the children should be considered as the most precious possession of them, because in the long run, they are going to support each other. So there are two different attitudes. Parents are loaded with multiple responsibilities nowadays: domestic, financial, professional targets. And while on the other hand, the children are a free soul. So parents need to know this truth and behave accordingly, rather than always curbing them because of their frustration. Don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that. They need to understand that they're a bundle of energy, and they're a free soul without any responsibilities or without any targets. So they have to let them, the children, be what they are doing. They need to understand their condition, have that empathy. Moreover, the parents are frustrated. They should not displace their own frustration on the children. It is what happens, that displacement, they get the frustration from some seniors, from other ways, and because the children are the softest spot, so they will displace all the things, and then the relationship will start disturbing. The children will withdraw or will not speak and will hamper the brain development. So strengthening the family coherence is must. They must focus on the good communication. I will come to do's or don'ts of the communication. And the all-around development should be focused, not only the academic focus. Digital skills, the parents have to teach them the responsible use of the electronic devices. They have to ensure that the children sleep adequately, exercise, and if needed, discuss the present scenario in a realistic manner. Children have a good enough brain to understand what is going on and what they are going through. One of the most important things that the parents need to do, or the family elders need to do, is that they have to avoid the overexposure to the news to the children. Because what I'm seeing, that in the family, 24 hours, 24/7, either the TV is running, the news is running, or they are discussing corona and their impacts. So the more they discuss, the more is the negativity, and the more are the children impacted. So try to focus on other aspects, whether it is domestic, whether it is character building, whether it is financial, or whether it is household responsibilities. Don't only focus on corona and its impact. That's the most important thing. The negativity will percolate, and it will hamper the further development of the children. And if needed, if the parents see some signs of any kind of mental health problems, they should consult a psychologist or a psychiatrist, and if needed, the medicine has to be given. That is most important thing. So regarding the book now, what is written in the book, I will just enumerate do's and don'ts of the communication. See, appreciate and approve more frequently the children, especially the efforts rather than the results. The praise is the fertilizer of the relationship. Express the love amply, make them feel wanted, be physically affectionate, give them hugs, kisses, pats, and enumerate in detail what they have done good. That builds a strong relationship. When the child falters, present the facts without personalizing it, what has been wrong, rather than accusing them, rather than personalizing them. Reframing the communication in the form of will you, can you, may you questions will have the inherent quality of getting the answer in yes or no, and makes the child more responsible. For example, bring me water. Can you bring water for me? Don't see the mobile sitting so close. Is it good to see the mobile so close? So that way the children are responsible to answer in yes or no, and that is an inherent quality of taking a decision. Discuss the pros and cons of the problems and their solutions rather than just directing or advising them. Maintain a balance between the right of knowing and overindulgence into their life. And what are the don'ts? Don't express anything in physical or verbal hostility. Don't cut off the communication. Don't be silent. Don't give them a silent treatment that I'm angry with you and I won't talk to you. So that kind of thing hampers, that kind of things bring inferiority in the child. Don't get obsessed with the perfection. Perfection is a self-perception. Let it be, let it flow. An effort is more worthwhile than the exact result. Don't threaten, tease, or distrust them. Don't compare and criticize with other children. Very important. The parents do tend to compare. Like my child is doing online classes. I see a lot of parents who are comparing. My child has got this grade. My child has got that grade. She has done this much art. She has done that much art. So don't compare and criticize during this time. Rather than ever, don't criticize and compare. Every child is unique in his own. Don't snap or mock. The other areas of focus or handling the children is character building, where you lead by example. The character is the intangible thing which will bring many tangible things in the future. Teach about social etiquettes, values of relationship, and encourage them for social interactions, maybe digitally, what is now available. Discuss and establish a timetable where you limit the digital time as well as include the exercise time. Give them age appropriate responsibilities regarding the domestic chores. Put the like after taking a dinner, put your plates in the wash basin or etc. or in the sink. Involve them in the household chores. Give them responsibilities and praise their efforts. Include the habit of giving and sharing by examples. Like during these corona times, many people who are poor are not getting enough food, shelter, or clothes. So be an example to them rather than teaching them. It is the actions which speak more than words. And moreover, involve them activities. In regular, do some activities together where cleaning and organizing house is important. Do it together, or have time together, like play indoor games or outings rather than just discussing corona. Inculcate habit of device-free dinner. I've seen many families who are just discussing, who are on their mobiles and on the TV and watching that, and not including each and everybody in the family cohesion. So leave the device at that time. Have at least 1 to 2 hours of quality time together. Leave the device aside. I call this as device-free dinner time, DFD time. And with the adolescent and the teenager, it is a time of change. They are confused, rebellious, curious, experimental, modeling the other behaviors. So there is an opposite sex attraction and body image disturbance. So there are issues over identity formation, independence, idealism, ethics, value. Give them patient hearing and discuss. At least when there is time, the parents are already burdened with the responsibility, but make the special time, leave the gadgets aside. They are not entertaining. Drug dependence is another area to discuss with them. Now coming to the role of teachers, they have a very important role to play apart from parents in building the character and building the child. Focus should be on to make the child a better human being, a better citizen, apart from a good citizen. Education is a tool, not an end. It is the character which is the most important thing for a nation. So teachers do need to understand that the child may be having resource limitation, and hence take the academics easy, relax, and let the child also relax. Don't just concentrate on the marks. They are only marks, only numbers, nothing else. Already they are the children are burdened from the freedom curve. So let them relax. Don't have so much of academic burden. Focus on the basics and necessary stuff. Still many schools are doing the other things which are not necessary academically. Do this art, do that art. So that consumes resources, that consumes time, and moreover, that consumes going out of the house. So limit to the necessary and basic stuff. Prepare notes and give them together. And while scoring also, keep it light. Give them marks. It doesn't matter. And children, what I was saying is that teachers are also parents. They are also human beings, so they will have their own emotions. So don't let your emotions displace to your students. Your frustration, domestic, financial, or relationship frustration, pour on the children. Be open to communication. Discuss the difficulties with children, because the teachers are the bridge between the children and the society, be it their parents or the others. Encourage the children to adopt good lifestyle and participate in the household responsibilities. They have another responsibility to adhere to. They should alert the parents in case they see mental disease symptoms are present, or alert authorities in case the abuse, whether domestic or sexual abuse, is present. So they have to be open. The children have to have confidence that they can confide in them. And if there are various helplines, the teacher need to educate them regarding the various helplines. Now, coming to the role of mental health professionals, there are two roles. En masse, that is a preventive role, and for an individual, that is a treatment role. So preventive role can be done like mass education on preserving the mental health is possible only when the authorities, NGOs, media, and government agencies collaborate with mental health professionals. Then they can educate en masse regarding the signs and symptoms of mental illnesses, the conduct disorders, drug dependence, cyber bullying, etc. And that can be done only with the mass media. And they can educate regarding the help and the treatment available. The mental health professionals have a role to play in eradicating stigma and encouraging everybody to take help, not only the children, but the others also. And they need to educate regarding the good coping mechanism, how to cope in a good way rather than in a bad way, and a good lifestyle. They need to educate regarding the good parenting parts, which I just told, protection from the drugs, signs of violence and abuse, and ways to prevent. Most of the kids don't know what is happening to them, so they need to educate. But that can be done only with the help of government agencies, NGOs, mass media, etc. And while individual, when the parents come along with their children to the parents, then they have to recognize the signs of trauma, treating them both in children as well as their parents, educate regarding good parenting and lifestyle measures. They have to give them other options like online treatment, consultations, and ultimately they have to treat them with the help of counseling, psychotherapy, and medications if required. The role of the society is a very large, which is the last part. The society has to be a role model. They don't have to get confused. The children gathering together and then they say you should stop, you should not maintain social distance, you should maintain mask. But at the other hand, then on the TV channels they see there are large crowds. So the society needs that they should act as a role model, right? And the society has to help each one with their own capacity. When the children see that, they also tend to model them. There should be an establishment of helplines concerning domestic and cyber violence, and programs and policies that they connect with the families to life for income, for food, and for education. There is a role of media also. They don't need to sensationalize each and everything and project everything bad. They have to educate. They have to bring optimism into the people's life. And if we say how to use the technology to mitigate the risk, so the principle of technology will be to use the technology, don't abuse. So using the technology means for their education, for connecting with friends. Abusing will be cyberbullying and getting hooked on to gambling, etc. So measures such as online visitation and consultation can be done through technology, learning about healthy lifestyle, utilizing various apps and following them for a healthy lifestyle, taking up hobbies and learning on the net about them. That is the use of technology. Being in touch with friends and relatives, educating regarding violence and abuse and availability of helplines. Avoid what has to be avoided technologically is avoid playing online games, gambling, overindulgence in social media and news sites. Avoid reading, viewing, or forwarding of corona-related material. That is again very important. So can the world be prepared for future epidemics and pandemics? Yes. But right now we need to focus on the present epidemic. So again, I see two things. Eventually, every children matter of life, the lifestyle for listening so patiently. I thank you all for listening so patiently to me.
Hello. Yeah.
Hello. Yes.
Dr. Mehta. Yes. That was indeed a very insightful speech, and we covered a lot of points, and it will be very beneficial for our panelists to just get to know a new perspective and how things are in India. And kids are indeed very vulnerable of the lot. And as you said, burnout is real, and the only way to overcome is with strengthening the family bonds, family ties, and distracting ourselves from this whole Corona episode and just Corona. We have to do other things which are more meaningful and go ahead with life. Thank you so much for your insightful speech, Dr. Mehta. Up next, we have Mrs. Sangeeta Nanda, Coordinator at the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family Welfare, Mauritius. She currently works at the Child Development Unit. She conducts training of officers, organizes workshops and seminars on child development, protection, and other early childhood development issues. Mrs. Nanda. Please unmute. Please unmute her, the tech department.
Okay, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, definitely. Yes.
So thank you, ma'am. Good afternoon to everyone. Here in Mauritius, we are currently in our second confinement. The first confinement was in March of last year till May. And then since the 10th of March, and we are currently in the confinement, it will be going on till I guess the end of April. And it's been quite an experience. And we are working directly with children, so we are in the field. I just wanted to say that I rightly agree with the other participants. And I really would like to point out some new points, adopt some new issues. You know, when we say the pandemic with this resultant confinement has had a direct psychosocial impact on the lifestyle, the education, the emotional well-being of children. And we've seen that children tend to become more vulnerable, especially when we say vulnerable children, we think about those children whose parents have contracted the disease and who have had to go to quarantine themselves. In Mauritius, we have a quarantine for 14 days. And this has had a very, quite an impact on the psychological of the psychology of the children. And also we've seen that not many parents also, we have many single-headed families whereby the strain of confinement, reduction of income, and social isolation, as well as stress-related violence, which we've seen have increased a bit, tend to have a higher incidence on children. And one of the participants said something about children with disabilities also. And we have tended to, when we talk about children, we tend to forget about children with disabilities. There are learning disabilities and physical disabilities. Many of these children used to go to specialized institutions, but with the confinement, they are having to stay at home. And this is quite a stress for the parents and the children as well. And also the hospitals have become a place where they can get the disease. So many children who have health issues also are finding it difficult to attend health services. There is also the thing about the uncertainty on the financial and health front, and the stress at home has brings about quite a bit of violence as well. And this tends to affect directly children. And also anxiety, we've seen that anxiety and overthinking about what lays ahead as regards their educational prospects tend to add up to the emotional imbalance that can have a deep impact on their current and future social interactions, because social isolation and physical inactivity as it is they are experiencing these days tend to have both physical and psychological issues that can affect their adult lives as well. Then the thing about parents being at home, we've seen that many parents, when they are at home, they tend to stay in front of the laptops and in front of using their mobiles most of the time. So they have even less time to devote to the children. And you will see children just roaming around in the house. And I guess this is a worldwide phenomenon. And children are left to their own devices, which tend to get them to use social media more and to be involved in games, online games, which can have a very adverse impact on their psyche, and also can get them to be victims of bullying. Get them to be victims of bullying and even victims of online grooming, which is something that is quite rampant these days with so many children online. Also, previously, both parents children and parents had their own activities and had quality time together in the morning or in the evening or during the weekends. But now, with everyone staying at home for the whole day, new paradigms have to be thought and implemented, which can sometimes prove to be difficult, as both parents and children are not really prepared for that. And then someone said something about loss of freedom. I guess also children in Mauritius and even around the island, they are used to going about their own activities, going to tuitions, going to school, or even leisure and social activities. Now they have lost that freedom. And also they are under the watchful eye of the parents or members of the family during the whole day. And this has been going on for more than 1 month in Mauritius here. And this perhaps we have to prepare ourselves. We have to think, what are we going to do for these children, how to prepare and how to work with them at home. And here I see perhaps the teachers, the parents, or even the authorities, we have to really think about such a thing. There is also the issue of children in alternative care. We haven't talked much about it, but there are many children who are not currently with their families. They are in shelters, in residential care institutions. These are children victims of violence or children with behavioral issues who are in institutions under court orders. And having a confinement, being quarantined, these children are not being able to go to school. They are not having much in terms of interactions. They are not having much in terms of visits and interactions also with their parents and members of their families. So this is also something that tends to get them to be more vulnerable. Now about the impact and isolation. School closure, lack of outdoor activities, aberrant diet, Because what happens is during when there is confinement, the parents are at home, people tend to eat more, and also lots of junk food. And then there is the disruption in the sleeping habits also, and exposure to disharmony at home. Parents are stressed out, the children are also stressed out themselves, and excessive use of screen. This also disrupts the children's usual activities. As regards the role of parents and teachers, frankly, you know, we've been seeing the types of cases that have been reported since the confinement came into play. There have been mostly cases of parents not knowing what to do with their children, and verbal abuse has been a bit on the increase. But the role of the parents is to treasure children and to ensure that there is adequate social interaction in terms of communication with them on issues. Firstly, we have to communicate with the children on the issues related to the COVID pandemic itself, and spending quality time to reinforce the emotional connections and keeping them occupied through lessons, collaborating into household works. I really agree with the panelists that came before me, and putting in place social and recreative activities. So we have to get them to relax and to bring forth a positive atmosphere in the home. Also, we have to prepare our children to restart school, because the parents they have much time that they are spending with the children, and we have to encourage the children to try on the protective masks, because we have to be frank, this is the new normal. So when the children are probably going to go back to school, and this is everywhere around the world, they are still going to have to wear the mask, which some children really find difficult. And we have to encourage them to think about ways to bond and stay connected with their friends, cousins, and even teachers. Previously, there were the extended families, but now with everyone settling around separately, we see that these confinements have brought forth the problem of social isolation. Previously, you had the grandparents, you had the cousins, you had everyone around, but now we see that mostly it is two parents and their children in the household. And this also tends to create, to enhance the social isolation thing. Then, as regards the role of teachers, currently, this is going on a bit around everywhere. We are having online classes. But what the teachers are mostly doing is that they are focusing only on the educational materials. What could be done is to try to promote a positive teacher-student relationship, and whereby they check on their students from time to time to see if everything is okay, if the children are having access to everything, if they are needing anything, and then they can perhaps get the collaboration of concerned authorities to see what can be done to help out the children. Also, teachers could go about bringing on strategies to organize the work of the children, to help them plan their schedule, and to stay in focus. There is also the thing about encouraging children to read. Currently, we see that most of the children on social media exchanging small notes. And what really happens is you see that when children are doing their comprehension or writing things, they tend to do so on an SMS small message thing. And what these sending small messages is doing is that it is restricting their vocabulary also. So this might be the time for teachers to encourage children to read and to write also properly. And also to keep abreast with the developments of the pandemic. Also helping children to be helpers, helping their siblings, helping their parents, helping the grandparents if they live together. And all this, what we're saying, will in a certain extent mitigate the incidence of social isolation. Instead of passing all their time with their mobiles or their laptops in looking at things on the net, they can be doing something with their hands, encouraging children to do things with their hands. I think that's one of the things that teachers, parents, and all the authorities should really think about how we are going to encourage them doing that. As regards society, I think there is need for increased awareness through the TV, radio, and other social media platforms on the pandemic, get them to know what's happening, what are the developments, and keep them occupied in healthy ways. Also, social interactions. I guess we should encourage social interactions through radio programs, get children to participate in small competitions and all, to encourage them to do things and to meet and interact with other people, even online. I guess that's the hard way, but we have to do it. As regards the use of technologies, almost every children around the world have access to technology in terms of mobile phones, tablets, laptops, high-end gaming systems, and the internet has also become accessible to many. The pandemic, with the confinement, has amplified the use of technology by almost everyone, especially children. And they have access to many forms of technologies, which to a certain impact is lessening the social isolation associated with the lockdown. But we also have to be very careful. As I've said, there is the incidence of bullying, child grooming, which we have to be very careful about. And this can happen even between countries, not even in the same country. And technology on the positive side, it helps them to communicate with their friends, relatives, and to continue their educational courses, that is, interacting with the classmates, even if they are not meeting for longer periods. Okay, and about how we can prepare for the future. Last year we were really taken aback with this unprecedented situation, but we have learned our lessons the hard way. And we have prepared ourselves in terms of institutions. So even for this year, as regards child protection and other issues relating to children, when we had the second confinement, we were ready and we were able to maintain and adapt our services so that we could provide emergency intervention for any cases of children. And we must also prepare the public, I guess, to take on their responsibilities and be consistent in maintaining a healthy and hygienic habit through a well-prepared community approach. I think there is much work to be done at the level of the community to get people to take on their responsibility. Also, there is a great need to promote research. We need to have much in terms of research on several issues, not only on the physical or mental impact of the pandemic, but also on how to prepare children and how to prepare our children in the post-COVID pandemic confinements, and to regain a measure of balance also, and a measure of naturalness, we have to say. And also to prepare ourselves and prepare the children to better protect themselves. Because we'll be sending our children to school. Last year we sent the children to school for quite a period, but we've had some, we had to prepare them. Even the putting on the mask, I guess we have to show them how to put on the mask and to stay with the mask for a whole day and how to go on with their work. We have to also prepare ourselves, because we need to think that this has gone on for 2 years. We don't know for how many years or how much time this is going to go on also. And we have to prepare them so that they can grow up to be adults, healthy and responsible adults. And as I guess for me, that is all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Rani Nanda. That was an amazing speech. And yes, I agree with you. The extended family setup is totally, is hardly there. And there are more of nuclear families and small families, because of which social isolation is more, more or less, it's happening more because of small families. And social interaction, which you mentioned, is the only way forward. And, you know, how we have to deal with the whole situation.
Communication has got a really important role to play here, because the confinement and has brought it forth that people are really isolated, and we really need to build up the bond, and to rework. You have to review our socialization process, I guess, because we have into small units, and the one to suffer the most are the children, because they tend to be more isolated than the adults, and having to cope with that is a bit difficult.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Up next, we have Mr. Naveen Taukurdas. He's coordinator at the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family Welfare, Mauritius. He currently works at Child Rehabilitation Services. Thank you for coming. Yes, please unmute it. Yeah. You need to be unmuted. The tech department, please unmute him. Yes.
Namaste, everybody. Good afternoon and good evening. I know in India it's already maybe 18, 19, I suppose. Well, I'm Naveen Taukurdas from Mauritius. For those who don't know Mauritius, it is a small island in the Indian Ocean of about 1.2 million of inhabitants. And effectively, even Mauritius, we have not been saved from this pandemic. As my dear friend earlier said, we had our first COVID in March last year. And proudly in December 2020, we were saying that we are COVID-free. And not more than 2 months in February, March, we found ourselves in another lockdown. So the basic here is from the perspective of the ministry where I am, Ministry of Gender Equality and Family Welfare, where it has a main mandate to look after the development of children and for the protection of children, where actually I am from the Child Rehabilitation Services, where we have different sections doing lots of job to rehabilitate those children, like my dear colleague said, who have been placed in residential care institution, and we are working so that they can go back in their parents. And at the same time, looking to ensure that there is protection of child. And especially from last experience that we had, we've seen that effectively we had a lot of reported cases. And we are talking about technology. Mauritius, actually, we have a good internet across the island. The rate is accessible for everyone. Even the low-ladder people can access easily to internet and to information. And in fact, at the ministry, we have an integrated support center where we are working through the hotline. And I must say this has been one of technical advancement in the ministry, where it's like a platform or like an call center where we can receive at one go 4 calls, and there are people who are working on that. And the good thing is that even from home, we are able to put this on. So just to say that at least people who are in problem difficulties, they are accessing to the services through phone to the ministry. And at the perspective of the departmental professional, we have the family welfare and protection officers, psychologists, legal advisors, the support team. They are all working to help those who are in need, actually, because we are in a lockdown confinement. and we are getting a lot of cases. Of course, why? Because of this isolation process, the interaction more where there were small problems, they are face to face, getting how do you say interaction, and we are getting a lot of people who are calling to be counseled and to have advice, and also reporting certain cases of abuse, or whether it be from child or from family. To say that even from the experience of last year, this year at least we were prepared, and we use all the facilities of technology and our networking between the different organizations. We have the ministry, we have the police department, even with the Minister of Health, to work together so that intervention is going on, at least the minimum business continuity is on. Of course, this is one of the aspects that when we have a disruption in the services, this leads to other problems. But from the perspective of the Ministry of Gender, at least this part is being looked after. We are looking after children who are at risk. We are at least ensuring that those children who are in residential care, because now they are confined, no activities out, so activities are being prepared to make them active there. Of course, this is one of the vulnerable groups that the ministry look after, but in general, we also now know that most of the children are inside the house because they're not allowed to leave. We know everyone, and this is the same process everywhere. Wearing the mask, like our dear colleague earlier said, has been mandated. Everyone needs to wear the mask. But this, a good thing is that the government has worked very hard to provide with regulations, policies, and came up with law very rightfully placed to see that everyone are taking care, precaution for all the sanitary exigencies that have been placed, social distancing, sanitizing hand, putting the mask, and even everyone is not allowed to move. So these are things that the government first step took very early when we went in the phase of confinement on 10 March, and still same going on. But at least there is this minimum business continuity with the economic activities going on, because of course, when we don't have food, we don't have markets open, we don't have access to other services, this impact directly on the families. And on the other hand, pressure in the family cause other internal problems. And here we must say that again, the government part officials, especially we have the frontliners, Ministry of Health and police officers are doing a very great job here, well, leading to us, our officers, who are able to work together to protect the children. And if we go ahead to say, well, how are we doing in this situation in Mauritius? Because of course, things does not work as we always plan. And this is a new thing that we have been experiencing. And each time moving ahead, we are confronted with other problems. Like, for example, if we have an emergency to attend, of course, we need to have the team transport police officers. So we are coordinating together with the main team of police, Brigade des Mineurs, to see that child abusers are not left apart and children are protected. And at the same time, we are having the court, who normally we have to present at the court, but this time the system started very earlier where we could communicate with the magistrate through email. Of course, we have certain code restrictions that we are using to ensure that law is not let apart. We are enforcing it, and we are getting results to ensure that children are protected. Children are getting services, even the family, where they are not being able to come at the office through the phone. And I must say the platform that I was mentioning earlier, Integrated Support Center, is a call free. So anyone can call, get advice, and if they need further professionals, so professionals are connected to them to support them in this difficult situation and advise them what to do. Because, you know, even those families who need to attend to work, because we are working in a roster basis, they need to attend to work to make things go on. Then we will talk about what is happening to those who have children. And as Jaya just said, if there is this nuclear family, what is happening? So we are just having to adapt and rebuild ourselves mentally and also physically to see how we can move ahead. Of course, all these experiences are making us think ahead. And when we come to that question of what about work and be prepared for further epidemics, well, we need to be prepared. We don't have other choice. We'll have to live with this virus and we'll have to adapt ourselves, take all necessary precautions so that we are well, and also our children does not fall into this trap of being addicted to technological smartphones, TV sets, and just don't talk, because relatively, you know, when someone is on the phone, he don't know if it's 1 hour or it's 10 hours, because they are immersed here. And in this aspect, the roles of the parents become very, very crucial, so that they are aware to monitor, to see, at least to come together with the children to talk. And here I will make reference of 1 hour program which we implemented a few years as a ministry about strengthening family values. And that worked very well. We went well ahead with that. But it's something that we can see that values is falling down. And if it is falling down, then you say, why? This is a time when parents have lots of time with their children, lots of time to rethink, rebuild themselves, review what went wrong in the house so that they can move further. My friend earlier talked a lot of lots of techniques which I think are very important, but at least the first thing is that parents should put it in their mind that it is vital that they monitor the child and come up with another way of life that we will be expecting further. There is no doubt the virus will stay here for long, but we at our hand, we have to take all our responsibilities to see that the developmental stage of the child are not disrupted, and see how we can do. We have a lots of information, a lots of on YouTube everywhere. The technology has built up so far that every minute we can find information. But then what's the use of just taking the information and not putting it in practice? So here I will say again that we have a lot to do, of course, but at our end as a ministry, all the officers are working at our way to protect children and to ensure that the rehabilitation process that has been undertaken, well, the Convention of the Rights of the Child is here. We are working for that, but we should not forget that we have to adapt to new ways of doing things and putting ahead our goal to move further. Maybe one thing I would like to add here is all these professionals are providing lots of information. We do take best out of it. We'll say thank you to the team who have given us the opportunity from Mauritius to share a bit of how it is going on here. And hopefully, I must say again and again that the government here is working hard and hard, and we're expecting a lot. And at the same time, the inhabitants have to do their part so that we can go ahead. Thank you, everyone, and we stay blessed, all of us.
Thank you, Mr. Naveen. That was an impressive dialogue which you delivered. And very rightly said, we don't have an option today of not learning and moving on with the whole situation. We have to get used to it and we have to go ahead with the whole scenario. And definitely miles to go before we sleep. We will, in the end, find light at the end of the tunnel. So thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Up next, we have Dr. Radhika Batra. She's a pediatrician in New Delhi, India. She's the founder and president of Every Infant Matters, a non-profit organization dedicated to the upliftment of disadvantaged children. She is Forbes Asia 30 Under 30 honoree, a One Young World Ambassador, a trust change maker with Thomas Reuters Foundation, Rising Star and Changemaker, and a Global Peace Index Ambassador for the Institute of Economics and Peace, Sydney. I welcome you today, Radhika, and thank you so much for coming. I know that things are not very well at home. Her mom just got diagnosed with COVID today morning, and she's still here, and I'm very thankful for you to just join the panel. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that introduction. And not just Mama, even I am having fever and sore throat. So, in all likelihood, I would also be COVID positive. But I had committed to you, and I had committed to this forum. So I didn't want to, let you guys down. Thank you for this incredible opportunity to speak on such a, such a burning and such a ignored issue, which is that what is the impact of COVID-19 and the associated lockdowns and the associated misery that COVID has brought on children, on growing children, on infants, on neonates. I think all have been impacted in every kind of way possible. So I made a few slides, and I'll just share my screen, and I'll speak, alongside the slides. That it's not long. It's not a very, exhaustive presentation. Are the slides visible?
Yes, they are.
Are they changing? Just a second.
Yeah, you can just do it to full screen.
Yeah, just a second. Oh, I've shared the wrong screen.
So that's it.
Just a second.
Yeah.
Are they visible now?
Yes, they are. Very well.
Okay, just a second. All right. So, COVID-19, the pandemic has had unprecedented impact on children, and children have been affected in every way possible. It's a travesty of fate. It's a travesty of justice. It's a travesty that, children who are born and, being a child in a pandemic hit world is just a, very unfortunate thing, because we as adults are so badly affected. You can't even imagine what the children might be going through. So I could start by giving you statistics, about how many have faced depression, how many have been abused. But, there's no use. There are millions of children who are hungry, millions of children who are facing starvation in view of the pandemic. There are millions who have been orphaned because of COVID-19. So there's no point in talking numbers. Let's come to the actual issues, at hand. So, the mind and body, like Dr. Rajiv had very, elaborated very nicely, that mind and body are inextricably linked together. And that's what our professors also taught us in medical school, So what I mean to say is that any disease of the mind will cause a disease in the body. So a happy child is essentially, going to have better immunity. He's going to have more chance of fighting infections, more chance of fighting the COVID infection if he gets it, as opposed to a child who is burdened with mental health issues. So, COVID has brought about a situation where the virus itself and this accompanied, lockdowns, the mental health issues, the the misery, the unemployment, the lack of resources, lack of money, they can jointly if and in or individually affect the mind and the body both together. And children being the most vulnerable population sector of the population are of course the worst affected. So, when we talk about children, what is meant by the word child? A child is not simply a age group. A child is an individual who needs full care. It is a person. He has a set of rights, and that it's just it's an aspect and a part of an aspect of society, a part of the population who is not fully developed to adulthood. So, when it comes to dependence and independence, children are very dependent on parents for food, for love, for security, for care, for everything. And a child can only live in a family or a family like situation. So, of course, that is an ideal situation, being in a family where there are parents, where there are grandparents. That is an ideal situation for a child. So once if a parent gets COVID, or even if a grandparent gets COVID, and if they don't survive, or they have a prolonged ICU stay, or even if they are isolated in one room, the child cannot understand the gravity of the situation. The child is going to miss their parent, and the child is going to want to meet that person who is in isolation. So suddenly they'll find that their mother is sick. She's lying down. She's coughing. She's been locked up in a room. The child is not allowed to meet the mother. The child is not allowed to go near the mother. So this is just very unsettling for a child. And then one day the mother is carted off in an ambulance to a hospital. So what happens then? Can you imagine the intense fear and the apprehensions, the doubts that come into a child's mind? It's just unimaginable misery for any child who is young. It's unimaginable misery for us adults. What do we say about for children? They can't even fathom this kind of situation ever. And they'll just think that, is she gone, and is she ever going to come back? Will she be safe where she is going? They won't be able to understand anything. So all these issues have collectively caused a fear psychosis. They are going to cause a huge amount of post-traumatic stress disorder in the coming years once the pandemic settles down. So I think the next pandemic that we're looking at after COVID-19 is over is of course a mental health pandemic, with children being the worst affected. Right. So very often, when the parents are infected with COVID, as is happening in many childhoods, in many households, there is a lot of physical neglect which comes along with the parents being, unable to care for the child. So parents are basically an umbrella that protect the child from the intense, adverse conditions that the world throws at them. So with the loss of a parent, or with the parent being incapacitated, who will take care of the child? It's very unsettling. It's very disturbing for these children to understand that suddenly, your mother was giving you food every day. Suddenly one day she's not giving you food, right? And this is more pronounced where the socioeconomic status is low, and it's not very the resources are limited. So once a child, God forbid, a child loses a parent, then the rest of the family might not even care for the child as well as the parents would have cared for the child, right? So a lot of physical neglect would be there, which would cause both immediate and long-term effects on education, on economic opportunities, and of course on the mental health of a said child. So this is what we were talking about. When there's COVID in a parent, that leads to a lot of adverse effects like joblessness, poverty, less food, hunger, psychological trauma, anxiety, depression, aggression, domestic violence, broken homes, higher divorce rates, which ultimately would lead to poor school performance, which would, in the long run, lead to lack of job opportunities, would have an adverse effect on the world economy, and this vicious circle would continue because of the pandemic which is in place. Okay, so So children, after the pandemic set in last year, there was already a lot of starvation and malnutrition in the world, and that just increased at least 100 times. So children all over the world are facing starvation. There are countries like Yemen, there are countries like the Democratic Republic of Congo, country like India, in northern Nigeria. Millions of children are displaced from their homes. There are children of migrant workers who are, just they sort of become refugees and they're on the run with their families. So when people flee for their lives, where is this food coming from? So this problem, the COVID-19 pandemic, has increased the malnutrition problem, and malnutrition comes with a lot of diseases associated with it, and of course it causes an increased susceptibility to COVID-19 and increased chances of mortality if the child were to get COVID-19. So, hunger and disease, they do have a cause-effect relationship, and this problem has just been exaggerated a millionfold after the pandemic has started. Another problem which we are facing, of course, is that schools have shut down, and nobody knows what is the standard of homeschooling that parents are able to give to their children at home. And most of the times, if God forbid the parents are affected, then schooling is the last of the priorities. And the education, the quality of education that children used to get has really suffered in the pandemic. And of course, school is not just about studies, and it's not just about education. Going to school is a experience which is very important for the psychosocial development of any child. So all of the activities, the friends, the going to play, engaging in sports, extracurriculars, hobbies, all that has come to an end, and that whole school experience has just it has just been halted, and we none of us have any idea when we would be able to reopen the schools. And to be very honest, it doesn't look like it would be any time in the future that the schools would reopen, because with children, you can't even have this protective gear, which, and you can't trust them that they would be conscious enough to be wearing masks or to be wearing face shields or anything like that. The schools would be shut for a very long time now, and all of those activities, theater, sports, meeting with peers, all of that has come to an absolute end. And the support and the comfort that a child gets in school, the children of today who are in the school going age group in the pandemic are not getting it. So with nothing to do, their eyes are glued to their iPads or the television, or just they're just uh, getting very addicted to technology, and they're just on YouTube the entire time. So all of these addictions to screen time, and an increase in screen time is leading to aggravated anxiety and depression, and it's causing a lot of aggressive behavior, specifically in children who are in their early teens. So all these problems are there, and in most of the houses what is happening is that the parents are not able to identify the mental health issues in the children. They're just getting angry at the children, and they're just being very they're also just give me a second. Yeah, yeah, I'm so sorry. So I was just saying that not being pediatricians or not being mental health experts, these children, the parents of these children are not able to pick up on the issues and the mental health issues that the children are facing, and they are not able to ask for help, as actively as they should be asking. So, like I said, hunger is not just about feeling hungry. And now, coming to my organization, Every Infant Matters, we serve children in need, and we try to counter the ill effects of malnutrition and hunger in children. And we have really stepped up our activities since the pandemic started, just to to sort of tide over this crisis period and help as many people who are worst affected during this time. So of course, we are giving them vitamin A to improve their immunity so that they don't catch the virus that easily. Because if there's a malnourished child who has vitamin A deficiency, he is much more prone to get COVID-19 than as would be a healthy child whose nutritional status is good. And then we are also distributing a lot of food. We've started something called the Million Meals Project, where our volunteers distribute high quality, nutritious and freshly prepared food to almost 2,500 people a day. And most of them are children and their families. So we try to tackle this, malnutrition problem as much as we can. And I'll just give you an example, like in all the construction work has come to a halt. Laborers have no work, their children are starving. So, one day we found out that all of our volunteers who were serving the food have succumbed to COVID. and our manager just picked up all the containers of food, and he went to one of these construction sites where the laborers were, staying, and he just distributed the food there, because we didn't want to stop our activities just because people were getting infected. Because the more the virus grows, the more it's like a vicious cycle. The more hunger grows, the worse the malnutrition becomes, and the more is the infectivity rate, and the more people will succumb to COVID-19. So all of these are problems which are in a very, I would say, they're in a um, very interlinked. They're very interlinked to each other. All of these problems, and we're just trying to tackle them as much as possible. So this pandemic, just to summarize, is having a lot of adverse effects on children. Some are visible right now, but many will come in light in the next decade, when we will have generations of children who have not had adequate education. They have been unable to support themselves. Their parents were incapacitated, and they are emotionally weak and cannot cope with the vicissitudes of life. So these are the problems we should anticipate going forward and take remedial measures starting from now. Plan it out, chart it out, see how we can tackle the problems which are going to come up in the next 10 years. And then, what, as we adults, what can we do to protect our children? There are a few things which, I thought of that I could share with everybody listening, that, these are the things that I would do if I had a child in the pandemic. But first and foremost is love. Give your child unconditional love. Don't be judgmental. We don't want you venting out your frustrations on a child. The child is not responsible for the pandemic. The child is not responsible that you've lost your job. The child is not responsible that you're facing financial crises in your life. The child is just innocent person, innocent aspect of your life who loves you unconditionally. So please reciprocate that unconditional love, and do not release your frustrations on your child. Right, you have to cope with all the miseries that have been thrown at you in the best way possible, and loving your child is the best way of counteracting this misery, I would say. When you look at your child, you just feel this immense happiness which suddenly comes on, and I don't think anything can beat that. I don't have a child of my own, but I have children in the hospital, and when I'm very 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 sad or very very upset, I just go and play with them, and half of my misery goes away. So children are a source of happiness, and let's give them the love that they deserve. Second, of course, is nutrition. Keep your child's nutritional level as good as possible. Learn how to provide good quality nutrition. If you're facing a financial crisis, there are ways to give your child very high quality nutrition at a very low cost, and that's what I teach everybody. In Every Infant Matters at my hospital, where we get a lot of disadvantaged mothers and patients. This is a part of a holistic health program, that we're running at Every Infant Matters. We counsel mothers on good nutrition. For example, an apple is an expensive item, but a banana is not. And a banana is highly packed in nutrients. An egg is not expensive, it's highly packed in nutrients. So give your child very, very good nutrition. You have to give them, a diet which is rich in vitamins and minerals, high in fiber, high in iron. You have to prevent anemia. Cooking in iron utensils. In India, we say lohe ki kadhai mein khana banana, which means that you use a vessel, a deep bottomed vessel, which is made of iron, which helps in improving the iron content of the food, and it helps in fighting anemia. And anemia is, of course, one of the other reasons why immunity falls in children. Right. So nutrition, and then of course support groups for children, for families, for children. Suppose you have an extended family, have a support group with all the children of different age groups. With other children, have online webinars, Zoom meetings, organize interesting, engaging activities for them over Zoom. It's okay. They can't meet their friends, they can't meet their cousins, but they can have a dance session online or a hobby session online, some classes online. All of them are available these days. Encourage activities within the house that includes physical activity, dancing, aerobics, yoga. All these things should be encouraged, because exercise releases endorphins, which are very good for the mental health of any child or any adult for that matter. Right. Last thing I would say is that it is of course a very stressful situation, and all of us are, at least in India, are going crazy with the amount of work which has suddenly come upon us, be it arranging resources, be it helping other family members in need, be it helping a family and friends, or just helping around the house, because we don't have domestic help anymore. All of these things are really piling up upon us as adults. So encourage your child to help out in the house. because when you give them a task to do, they keep occupied, and when they accomplish that task, they feel very, very satisfied and happy. So for instance, I'll give you an example. There was a teenager who was undergoing a lot of depression because of being under lockdown. She was not able to meet her friends. She was not able to go to school. But then, one day she was told, your mother might be COVID positive. You have to arrange a room for her once she gets back in the hospital. You have to make it a nice, happy, beautiful place so that your mother is happy in that room. And she spent, days prettifying that room, buying cushions to online to make the room nice for her mother, and that gave her a lot of happiness. So encourage your child to help out, encourage your child to engage in household activities, and you can offer small rewards. So suppose there is a lot of cleaning, a lot of chores to be done. You can delegate them, a few of them, to your children. Of course, they should be old enough to do them. And once they accomplish those tasks, they'll feel very good about themselves. And you can also offer small rewards. You can have a system within your family where you can have a chart, where you can give one child one golden star for completing one task, 2 golden stars for completing, and at the end of 10 golden stars, you buy them a present. See, these are all tactics to engage children while this crisis lasts, and engage them in conducive, positive, creating a positive atmosphere for them as much as possible. We can't shield them from the news. They are watching the news every day, more than us. They are watching. They are following newspapers. They are following the number of cases more than us. They're following the deaths more than us. But we can at least, distract them for a little while and help them escape their misery for a little while. So I think that's all about what I wanted to say. And I think people say that a picture speaks 1,000 words, and I'm just telling you stories because every anecdote paints a picture. So I think that's all I have to say. And thank you, all of you, for listening. I hope that helped a little.
Thank you, Radhika. We loved your talk. It was, we felt attached. It was real. It was full of good examples.
I'm so sorry. I could have done a better job. I'm just not very well right now.
You were ill. Please get well very soon and come back roaring for our next event. So please take care of yourself. My best wishes to your mom and grandpa. And
Thank you so much, Kanupriya, and thank you all for listening. Thank you. Bye-bye.
She's the director of Royal Kids Nursery and Pre-Nursery School since 2014. Her goal is to provide an affordable, high-quality education to the Mauritian young children, an education which will develop a strong base for primary schooling. Let's see how she's been dealing with pandemic and how the school is going and what she has to say today. Yes.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Kanupriya. Thank you, everyone. Actually, we have got great insight from all the participants. And most of you have already spoken about the impact of COVID-19 on children. So what I'll be talking today is my experience actually with the parents. What are the feedback I have been receiving from the parents during this lockdown period, and what we as a school we have been doing to help the parents. Actually, this is our second lockdown, as some of my Mauritian participants, some of the Mauritian participants have already mentioned. It's been 6 weeks now since the children are out of school already. So the children are at home, they have changed the routine, and it is mostly the parents who are with the children 24/7, day after day. So what we have been doing is we have been with constant communication with the parents, and I'll just give you some of the points of what the parents have been telling me, that the changes in the attitude of the children that they have actually seen till now. So most of them have actually reflected that the children are now more irritated. So there is more irritation from the children. The children just cry for just anything for the drop of a hat. They are restless. And this is what actually we have been talking, because children have a lack of activities. They are not going out, so there is no meeting with their friends, no socialization, etc. which is a result of it. So it is a sign of depression and anxiety, which is a result of children being confined to their homes. Another symptom is that children are returning to behavior that they have outgrown. For example, children who were already potty trained have started using nappy a bit more or having more accidents. Children who had grown out of the pacifier are now looking for comfort in this again. And it is those kind of behavior which children have grown out. For example, they had limited screen time, so now there is not really this limit, so they have constantly on their TV or tablet or smartphone with YouTube and everything. And there has been also an kind of unhealthy eating habits, because when people are at home, at the beginning, it's a lot of food on the table, because most of the day the children want to snack, want to have food. So there has been unhealthy eating habits, and based on last year's experience, we find that there has been cases where children have been gaining weight, unlike what they usually, because usually they have a lot of activities, they come to school, there's all these exercise. They're now confined at home. Children have a tendency to gain weight. And there is an erratic sleeping time. So there is a disruption in the sleeping habits. This has been something which a lot of parents have highlighted for us. So there is no real time to wake up and real time to go to bed. And there's also that thing, there's a difficulty to concentrate. Children get difficulty to concentrate, to focus on something, because firstly, they're just confined day after day on the same thing. They don't have that space, really. Not every child has got the opportunity to have the required space. And as was mentioned, now we're more in a nuclear family. So it's the father, the mother, and the child. So this is what parents have been giving as a feedback to us. So on our side, as a school, what we've been doing is, as was mentioned, which helps, is the online sessions. I'm not saying online teaching for us, because here we need to realize that we are catering for children less than 6 years old. So we are having online sessions. Online teaching 9 to 2 o'clock is not really healthy and relevant for children for very young children. But we are having daily online sessions with the children. What we did is we brainstormed with our team, and we reflected on several studies, and we came out with a strategy that we're having 2 30-minute sessions with the children every day, Monday to Friday. Why I'm saying sessions is because it is not just, these Zoom sessions are not just a continuation of the curriculum or education. It is a way to interact with the children. It is a way that they are getting the opportunity to speak to their teachers, and it is a way for them to see their friends. And we have been in very close contact with our parents, because we know that this is a time where it can be challenging for parents to have young children at home. And most of this second lockdown, what I found is biggest proportion of parents now are working from home at the same time. Maybe companies have adapted that now they're requiring the parents to work from home compared to the first lockdown last year. The parents are having the challenge of having to work at home, to have the children with them, and to have the house to look after and everything. So it can be really challenging. So what we propose is every morning at 9, some sessions start at 9 o'clock, some at 9:30. The children are there, and we do the circle time with the children, which involves usually at school, we do the prayer, the national anthem, and conversation with the children. So the children are getting the opportunity to still talk to their teacher, see them, converse, see their friends. So this 30-minute circle time is kept for all the children, and each one are getting this opportunity. And then we have a break time, and then it can be 1 hour or 30 minutes. This is set for every class. And then after 30 minutes, they meet again, then they do some activities. Activities are worksheets that is a bit of education, which is a continuation of what they've been doing at school till now. but we have had to adapt it, obviously, because we cannot just take what was done at school and continue doing it now. So we've involved a lot of activity. For example, when we're doing colors, we need to go and do a treasure hunt at home, looking for things that of that particular color. Counting is done with the spoons and forks. For example, circles is based on what is available, shapes, what is available in the kitchen. It is really adapting it and making it fun and interactive for the child. So this has, we find that the children are really participating. They have a good time, they love, they communicate. It is a time where they feel valued, they feel that they are really getting the opportunity to express themselves. And we have fortunately had a good participation. Initially, it was a 70% participation from parents and children. And as they go by, we try to communicate with the rest of 30% and asking them why they are not involved. Actually, we said it is not compulsory because we do not want it to be a pressure on the child or on the parent if he or she cannot attend during that time. But we've been communicated and have an open discussion about why is there an issue. So some of them had maybe they were not very used to the Zoom application. So we've tried to coach them, and until now we have approximately 85% participation rate on our Zoom classes. But what I'd like to say here is the Zoom classes is not about teaching. It is about having these children having a routine, because children thrive on routine. When they get a time to wake up, they know there's a time when they will come, they will see their teachers, they will see their friends. It's from Monday to Friday, and then they have their weekends, and then they have some worksheets afterwards where they can do a few things at home. It helps the child and the parents to actually have something to do and know where to channel the child. Now it's not only about worksheets. We also have exercises that they do online, and the children are really, really excited when this is done. When we do the jumping, and when we do like the clapping hands, when we do the running, even if it is just in the house, they are really participative, and we find that the parents are also very happy about it, and we find our children happy. So this is what is important during this period. The education is important. However, now during that lockdown period that children are at home, it is important to keep them happy and also to give them that opportunity to express themselves, because we are adults when we find that we get frustration, we can't maybe express ourselves. Children sometimes, when they see stressed parents, or sometimes it is an eventuality that they are witness of domestic violence or abuse, they are seeing these things, they can maybe keep everything to themselves. So having this interaction with their carer, with their teacher helps. We really believe it does help the children. And it is something that we would wish that most schools would do. Actually, I'm in an association with the pre-primary school managers, and a lot of them said that they don't find it relevant for children, young children, to have Zoom session, because they say the teaching cannot be done because teaching needs social interaction. I agree. At that age, social interaction is really important. But when we are not able to have it, so I think this is really important, where we are getting the opportunity to talk to the children and they are getting the opportunity to see us. We have had queries from parents, and we have, even when parents ask us, we give one-to-one virtual meeting with the child and the teacher, and they get to talk and express each other, because we all know that young children confide and trust their carers, their teachers. They do have that bonding, and there is this love that they get at school, and there is this connection which is built. So having this communication, I believe, is really important. For the future, what I would love to see is more and more private schools, because in Mauritius, the pre-primary school is mostly private institution. It's more than 70% is reflected as private institutions. I believe why the private institutions are not doing it, it's only a handful which is doing it, is because teachers, managers didn't get the coaching how to interact with young children virtually. It is true, it is very different. With our team, we had to have a lot of sessions, a lot of coaching about what are the activities that can be done and which are relevant virtually to be done with young children. And we find that it's really working. You really have an adaptation period, but we found that adaptation period was 1 or 2 days. On the third day, the children were really new, they had to come here and they were happy, they knew that they started to get into that routine. And we find that this has really helped. So that would be my last thing. It's about, as Mr. Takuras mentioned, we have a rather good internet connection. There are many parents with smartphones nowadays. We do understand and we are aware that there are some children who maybe won't have that access, but most of them are having access to smartphone and to internet. And it would be really great if the Mauritius community could have that coaching, that they can interact with their children even during this lockdown period. The 6 weeks already out of school, we don't know how many weeks we'll be going out again. So this is my wish for Mauritius, is that our young children keep this contact with their teachers and carers. Thank you, Kanupriya. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Zareen, for just letting us know the entire what's going on with the parents and the students and the school and everything. And definitely routine is important, as you said, because if there is a routine, then kids as well as parents, they look forward to the day that, you know, we have something to look forward to. Tomorrow this is happening, we have to go cycling, we have to do this, that. So that is not happening. That's a drawback, and we shall come over it. And thank you so much for coming in and speaking on this platform. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our last speaker, last but not the least, one of the very influential speakers that I know of, Ms. Nudrat Azam. She is a facilitator of psychology, adolescent counselor, and career guidance counselor with 10 years of experience imparting education with zeal, providing guidance to students regarding career development, academic achievement, social behavior, as well as mental and physical health. Presently, she's a counselor in Ambassador School, Dubai. Welcome, Nudrat.
Hi, thank you so much. Greetings of the day to all the panelists and all the members present here. It's indeed an honor to be here and absolutely delighted to be invited to such an event. And I must say that we are the most passionate people for the kind of profession that we are in, and you know, to keep us on the topic that we've been discussing for so many hours. But that really must make me point out one thing, is that we have an enthusiasm. We've gone ahead and beyond the time that was given to us. And that has definitely led to a higher screen time, which definitely leads to a lower cognitive engagement. And I think we will all agree here that this is exactly what may be happening with our students, because they are now tired with looking at their screens all day long, and having the classes online and meeting their friends online. And every time there is a lower rate of COVID, and they feel like things will go back to normalcy, COVID resurfaces with a new zeal and a new strain, and things are back to zero and square one. And it's again, you know, the emotions are overwhelming. With the examinations getting cancelled or canned or deferred, it has again led to a lot of confusion, which has definitely led to a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression. And I have been a part of UAE for quite some time now. And I must point this out, that UAE is a country where there are more than 200 nationalities that operate and work together. And with that kind of diversity, and these expats, more than 200 nationalities, they definitely overshadow or overpower, I'm so sorry. the locals of the country. And this is where the COVID-19 has brought about or has fostered the economic inequality, with people losing their jobs in the pandemic, with kids unwillingly shifting their base back to their home country. And I have known families and kids who've been born and brought up in Dubai and has been staying in UAE for more than 30 years, and under the pandemic and lockdown had to make this hard decision of moving back to their home country. And with the kids wanting to adjust, somebody in the beginning very rightly pointed out this, that the kids in the pandemic have had to deal with grief and loss. And with the grief and loss that's happening for the kids in Dubai is the grief over loss of their friends with whom they've born and brought up with the culture that they belong to, which grief over having to move back to their home country, which they were happy to visit in their summer holidays, but may not be very open to the idea of staying there for the longest time possible, because they're used to a certain lifestyle that UAE offers, or used to a particular kind of an education system. So that's definitely one thing that has led as a byproduct of this pandemic. And the second thing the second category of students that are affected the most is the ones with the special needs category, students with special education needs and disabilities. So again, to point out one thing, UAE believes highly in inclusion. So we don't have a lot of special education centers in Dubai and elsewhere in UAE. Students with SEND needs, that is special education needs and disabilities, are included in the regular school system. So each and every regular school has a special needs criteria, and the students study with the regular students of neurotypical needs as well. And they are the ones who've mostly been affected the most, because again, how do you give that support? How do you make sure that when they're having a tantrum or when they're having a bout of aggression because they suddenly feel that they are at loss of control, they don't have an independence over the kind of situation that they're in, they can't communicate because a lot of them are non-verbal, or they can't speak out their mind, they're acting aggressively. How do you control that on an online platform? How do you empower parents to deal with them? Because even they are at home and even they have work from home scenarios. So a lot has happened with the students there. And there was a research that was recently conducted and which said that mostly students with special needs are not being adequately supported along with other students. But that's something that a lot of other the panelists in a discussion here has very rightly pointed out, and how very deeply affected they are. So I would like to cutting it short, I would really like to focus on what has helped the schools in Dubai mostly with the students and with the parents. So one thing that we have had to initially begin with is to start with support groups for parents of special needs, students with special needs and disabilities, wherein we meet them on a regular basis, we train them on a regular basis, we give them a platform where they can let out their emotions, and dealing with their emotions has helped a lot and has brought about a calming effect on the lives of their kids, which has thereby led to a change in their situation. The other thing is having a support group for teachers. Again, our panelists very rightly pointed out that teachers are human beings, and teachers must make sure that they are not displacing their emotions onto their students. Sometimes they don't know how to have that control. They don't know how do I go about maneuvering around my situations when my life is breaking apart. My husband has lost the job, or I'm the only one who is with the job here. My kids are not listening to me. My in-laws are suddenly at my place and I don't know how to deal with them. And what's next? And then the longer working hours that has been forced upon the teachers and the different stakeholders here because of the online classes. So we've started with an online support group and a well-being session for the teachers and educators, where we meet them once a week or once in 10 days at least, and make sure that they have a platform for catharsis. They are venting out their emotions and there is nobody judging them. And when I say it's educators, it's not just teachers. We include even the school principal here in a forum like this, in a group session like this, where you can speak your mind in the most non-judgmental manner. And if there's something that you're upset with regards to schools, you can. You don't have to think that you have your grade supervisor or you have your principal sitting in the session along with you. We view each other as just humans who are dealing with situation and uncertainty, and not with the role or the designation that they come attached with. Something that has again worked where wonders is reduction in teaching hours. We've drastically reduced our teaching hours. We don't have a normal teaching hour starting at 7:30 in the morning and the school ending at 2 in the afternoon. We've just reduced the classes. We've reduced the teaching hours. We've introduced a lot of vocational classes online. So students are now engaged instead of focusing on academics, which we have again transitioned it from a lecture-based method where the teacher is talking and teaching and there's presentation playing, or the YouTube video being sent out for the students to learn. We've transitioned that into a more project-based learning where students are given the independence to take control of their own learning. And so what has happened as a result is, in a situation which is so uncertain and where the kids feel as if there is nothing in my control, now kids feel that there is something in their control. And that is the most important part, which is their education. So we've transitioned that into more of a project-based learning. We've introduced a lot of Zumba classes. We've introduced a lot of cooking classes online. Sometimes it's with the supervision of the parents, and other times when the parents aren't available, we've introduced something like cooking without fire, where you not to worry about, what if the child gets into the kitchen and the child is left unsupervised, so now what? So it's cooking without fire, which has, again, as someone very rightly pointed out, brought in a lot of independence, and the students have been taught how to cook. Again, a value of nutrition has been implemented, healthy eating habits, instead of just telling them, you must eat this because it has so many nutrients. Now they're learning it themselves. So there is some semblance of control in their life. We have, again, the next thing that has worked wonders for the emotional needs of the students, be it students with special needs or neurotypical ones, are counseling sessions, yes, but peer counseling sessions. Identifying a group of students from the school who are ready to take on this challenge, training them for getting into classes or speaking one-on-one with the students and identifying their needs, or getting them to open up, has worked wonders, because students feel that they can connect more with their classmates or somebody who is belonging to the similar situation, rather than a teacher or a counselor who would rather come across maybe someone who's so much older and wiser, maybe have been there, done that. They know that the person I'm talking to is on a similar platform, is sharing the same boat as they are, and they open up easily. Obviously, these set of peer counselors are in constant contact with the school counselor. They are not working independently because they are not trained to. But yes, it's just simply to give them a platform that, I have so-and-so Didi, or, like an elder brother or a sister in a higher grade who I can just simply message, or are more accessible on Snapchat or Instagram, and I don't have to write them a formal email, is gives them a better, makes them feel better emotionally, that, I have someone whom I can text at 2 a.m. in the night, because I know that, like me, even they are awake. And, it's better to talk to them than a stranger on Instagram who may not be the wisest option or the choice to speak with. And yes, like I said, this is something which is a norm in UAE, to have learning support assistance for students with special needs. So because we focus a lot on inclusive education, we've had special training sessions organized for the learning support assistants, who have now taken up the role as educators to deal with students with special needs online. So they are the ones who are constantly in a push-in session, helping out an educator. While, for example, if I'm a teacher and I have a student in my class with special needs, I'm not the only one dealing with that student with special need. I have a learning support assistant who helps me bridge the learning gap between the rest of the students and the student with special needs. Sometimes these students are given a platform to meet with the educator offline, or maybe in a different online platform after the school hours to discuss, to make sure that they've understood. And sometimes we as teachers give the learning support assistants maybe a set of worksheets or activities that they can independently conduct with the student that they are assigned with. So it kind of balances out so much, and there's not just one stakeholder here who is under immense pressure to deal with everyone's educational or academics or emotional needs. You have somebody who is like an equally trained educator who called as learning support assistants who are helping them as well. So this is overall which has helped a lot, making sure that the students are open to talking to the school counselor, making sure that the parents have a good support system in school. So we've had well-being sessions for parents as well, where we meet them once in fortnight and make sure that they have a healthy outlet for venting out their emotions too, and they are expressing their concerns, and be it their financial problems or be it their emotional problems. They don't have to hunt for a counselor, or pay them an extra amount, because obviously we don't know if they'll be able to afford it or not. The school counselor is there for them. The school organizes for them. Yeah, or regular painting sessions. We have regular yoga sessions online, Zumba sessions online. So a general shift from academic pressure to physical and mental health has really helped the students really helped all the stakeholders basically deal with the situation better, be it parents, be it educators, be it administrators, be it the management. We have a special well-being session just for the governing council members of the school, where you have the MDs and the chairpersons and the founders joining in, because they are under immense pressure too, and they need to have a platform to be heard as well. So just introducing these small little sessions at every level has generally helped us and the other schools in Dubai to bring in a sense of calmness, to build in a sense of trust, to have better transparency between everyone, and to just generally understand and trust each other, to be able to communicate openly has helped a lot, in terms of has helped everyone a lot, not just students, it's just everyone. And to constantly train each one of these stakeholders to have a lot of open-ended questions, because sometimes in times of frustration or anger, we do become authoritarian. So it's just training the parents to kind of ask their kids that, I see that you are being mean to me. Can I help you in some way? Do you need my help? Or are you not feeling well? Why are you being mean to me? Instead of saying, don't answer me back. I'm your mother and you must talk to me this way. Instead of saying that, just asking this question, I see you being so mean to me. What have I done so wrong? Can I help you in some way? Has helped a lot of kids opening up and say, I don't know why I'm being mean to you. Or I don't know why my mind tells me to act this way today. And just to kind of take that conversation ahead and say, it happens sometimes. It's very normal for you to feel this way. And what you must do next is take a deep breath, or let me know this is what you're feeling, or let's just have an ice cream, or let's just have a banana, because banana is, as somebody rightly pointed out, not just great at the nutrition level, it's a great mood booster as well. So let's just have a banana. Let's just not label you as having, you're a mean kid, or this was a bad girl behavior today, mama is not talking to you. Instead of doing that, just kind of normalize that these emotions, they do come out, or differently, they get misplaced differently, they get displaced onto different people, has given a lot of help, has brought in a sense of control over their environment, and has helped students and parents alike develop a healthy communication channel with the integration of nutrition. And not just, even it has become easier even for parents to realize that if today I'm not feeling well, I can have chicken and eggs. If that is what is permissible and they can eat and they're not vegetarians or vegans or whatever, I can have this and can give me a better and I can feel better. It can be a mood booster, because eggs are a mood booster, chickens are a mood booster, chocolates are a mood booster, ice creams are in a healthy amount mood boosters, so are bananas, and so are watermelon, and so is pineapple. Just such a healthy rush of glucose elevating your mood. And you know that you don't have to simply call up a doctor and say, can you give me a mind relaxing medicine? Can I just, I feel my child is slipping into depression, can you please give him a depression medicine? Has helped kids understand that they're not, their life is not just going completely out of their control, has helped parents understand that nutrition play a very important role, and in general, like I said, has established a lot of healthy communication channels. So that is something that has definitely worked. And at this point of time, I would like to stop talking and hand over the mic back to Kanupriya, and thank everyone for listening to me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nudra. That was amazing. And I really love, everybody's spoken about children, kids, mental health, everything. But then the support group for teachers, which you all have in UAE, that's really important, because teachers are also very much affected, because classroom teaching and then digital teaching, there's a lot of difference in that, right? So thanks for highlighting that point, and we got a lot of points of what you guys are doing in UAE, and it was lovely to have you here today. I would just quickly like to invite Mr. Akhilesh Ganpat, who's my partner in Mauritius and Director Valence, and he's helped me organize this entire event. So Mr. Ganpat, over to you.
Thank you, Kanupriya. So on behalf of Valence, I would like to express my appreciation to all panelists for the active participation and for sharing their experience and expert opinions. I also want to thank all attendees for joining our webinar. Special thanks to Kanupriya and the Binding Bharat team for making the webinar possible. It is an undeniable fact that the pandemic is taking its toll on children, be it social, emotional, or educational. As Shivani rightly pointed out, online classes have their limitations. With the lack of contact with their peers, many students are experiencing feelings of stress, anxiety, and depression. Schools need to be creative and introduce interesting interactive online classes. As Zareen exemplified, Royal Kids School has adopted its courses and adapted its curriculum. She has witnessed positive results and increased participation among the students and parents. Together, for the safety, well-being, and future of our children, we need to rise to the challenge posed by the pandemic through innovative ways. As Dr. Raksha stated, maintaining a healthy mental and physical lifestyle is key to help us fight this pandemic. Also, as Radhika pointed out, a disease in the mind will eventually lead to a disease in the body. Parents need to protect their children from mental health issues by giving them unconditional love. Right nutrition is of utmost importance. Parents need to ensure that their children eat balanced diets and nutritious foods. All panelists also agree that parents need to spend quality time with their children for the benefit of the whole family. For example, you can play indoor games, inculcate social values, strengthen family values, encourage reading and writing, and ask children to shoulder responsibilities against gifts such as chocolate or games. Finally, as goes the proverb, we do not inherit the earth from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children. So let us seize this opportunity whereby we are spending more and more time with children at home to ensure that they have a better future. Stay safe, and thank you all for your participation. Thank you, Kanupriya. Back to you.
Thank you. Thank you. We're concluding the event now, and every time I get mesmerized when I hear people from different parts of the world sharing the same concerns regardless of ethnicity, religion, country. This is the motivating force which keeps me and my entire Binding Bharat organization going. The hope that one day this world will be one family. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. In fact, we have to be one family if we want to save our future from the challenges that dawn upon us, and not just save, but to continue the journey of evolution and growth. And that's how I look at this topic to be of utmost concern and some questions that do need answering. I really want to thank all the panelists and the people watching the event from the bottom of my heart for coming over here, spending so many hours with us, and us having a meaningful event. Thank you so much for coming.